The Grand Hall of the Galactic Union buzzed with whispers. A new alliance was being discussed, one that could end years of cold silence between Earth and the mysterious Zalari Empire. But there was a strange condition: to bond with the princess of Zalari. No one could ever see her face, not before, not after, not even during the bonding ceremony. Most species called it madness. Some said it was a trick. Others believed the princess was cursed or dangerous. Many had tried to accept the bond, but they all backed out or failed the trials. Her face remained a secret, her presence wrapped in fear and myth. Then came a human, Captain Elias Grant, a former space soldier turned diplomat. Quiet, calm, and stubborn to the core. He had no interest in politics, but he stepped forward when no one else dared. His only words were simple: "I accept the terms." The Zalari Council laughed at first. A human? They thought humans were too emotional, too wild, but they allowed him. Maybe for entertainment, maybe for sacrifice, escorted by silver-armored guards. Elias walked through the shining halls of the Zalari Palace. The walls pulsed with soft blue light, alive with strange energy. He noticed cameras in every corner, watching, recording. He didn't care. Elias was taken to a chamber called the First Gate. There, a voice echoed from the ceiling, smooth and cold. "You will enter the princess's presence now. But you must not ask to see her face. You must not try to remove her veil. You must not turn away." Elias nodded. The door opened with a soft hum. Inside was darkness, not empty, but filled with something like invisible eyes watching from every corner. A soft glow appeared in the center. A tall figure stood behind a thick layer of holographic mist. She wore a long robe of deep silver and had no visible face, only a faint outline. Then a voice came, not mechanical, not alien, but sad and curious. "Why aren't you afraid of me?" she asked. Elias didn't speak right away. He stood tall and calm. Then he said, "Because I've met worse things in war, and they didn't hide." The princess was silent. No one had ever said that before. Most had praised her beauty without seeing it, or lied to gain favor. But this man, this human, was blunt. "You know nothing about me," she said, almost whispering. "You know nothing about what bonding means." Elias walked one step closer, though the guards shifted behind the walls. "I know what it means to trust someone you can't fully understand," he said. "And I know what it's like to be judged without being seen." That struck her. She paused. "Do you think I'm a monster?" she asked quietly. "No," Elias said, "but I think you've been treated like one." The princess didn't respond for a moment. Then the chamber shifted, the lights dimmed, and the floor vibrated slightly. "Most who enter here say what they think I want to hear," she said. "You're the first to speak what you truly believe." Elias gave a small nod. "I didn't come to flatter you," he said. "I came to see if this bond is real, even without seeing me." She asked again. "Yes," he replied, "because sometimes the face lies." That answer caused a ripple in the room. Lights flickered. A low humming filled the air. Then suddenly, everything went silent. A cold wind passed through the chamber. Elias turned his head slightly, his instincts alert. Something unseen moved across the floor. Something fast, silent, dangerous. Then the princess spoke again, this time her voice firm. "You passed the first gate," she said. "But this is just the beginning." Before Elias could respond, the chamber lights went out completely. A second later, he heard the sound of metal like a weapon sliding into place, and then a final whisper in his ear. "Not everyone wants this bond to happen." Darkness returned, but Elias stood his ground. The game had begun, and he wasn't playing to lose. The silence was heavier than before. Captain Elias Grant stood alone in the dark. But he didn't flinch. He had faced enemy fire, betrayal, even death. But this stillness was different. It was personal, like the room itself was watching him breathe. Then, without warning, a soft hum returned to the chamber walls. A circular beam of light appeared under his feet, then slowly widened. It revealed a platform surrounded by nothingness, no walls, No ceiling, just endless dark. Across from him, a second beam lit up, revealing the princess, still hidden in mist. And shadows, but this time the veil between them shifted, the mist parted slightly. Not enough to see her face, but enough to see her silhouette. She was tall, graceful, and strangely calm. As if she had been waiting for him longer than time itself. "Welcome to the true chamber," her voice said, gentle but cold. "This is where the bond truly begins." Elias didn't move, but he listened closely. "You've passed the first gate by speaking without fear," she continued. "But now you will be tested." "Tested for what?" Elias asked. "Trust," she replied. "Not mine but yours." Suddenly, the floor beneath Elias lit up like a glowing grid. He saw holograms rise around him, flashing memories from his past, his first battle, his fallen friends, a picture of his brother smiling before he went missing on a classified mission. Elias's breath caught for a second, but he didn't show it. "How do you have these?" he asked calmly. The princess did not answer. Instead, she stepped forward. Though her body remained partly in shadows, "These are echoes of who you are," she said. "And now, you must walk through mine." A new set of images appeared around the princess, but they were twisted, broken, blurred memories that had been erased or tampered with. In one, she was standing alone in a hall filled with bodies. In another, she was a child reaching out to a mother who turned away. In the last, she was on her knees, while tall masked figures stood over her, speaking in a language Elias didn't know. He felt something tighten in his chest. These weren't just memories. They were wounds. "You've been used," Elias said quietly. The princess didn't answer right away. She turned her head slightly, as if looking at something far away. "No one has seen these," she whispered. "Not even my own guards know." "Then why show me?" Elias asked. "Because," she said slowly, "you are the only one who might understand what it means to be trained as a tool, not raised as a soul." Elias stepped forward now, his boots echoing softly against the glowing floor. "Is this your test?" he asked. "To see if I pity you?" The princess let out a sound, half laugh, half sigh. "No, Captain Grant," she said. "This is to see if you see me." He paused, then said, "You've never been seen, have you?" Another silence followed, but this time it was heavier, deeper, like old pain surfacing again. Then she asked, "Why did you agree to this bond?" Elias didn't lie. "Because my brother vanished after being sent near your borders," he said. "His last message said he discovered something the galaxy wasn't ready for. I think that something is you." The princess didn't react visibly, but her voice lost its cold edge. "What was his name?" "Adam," Elias replied. "Adam Grant." The mist surrounding her shimmered slightly. "I've heard that name," she said, almost to herself. "Long ago. Someone whispered it during a council meeting." And then the room went silent. Elias's fists clenched, but he stayed calm. He knew now his brother had come to this place, maybe even met her. And that meant this was no ordinary bonding ceremony. "You're hiding more than your face," Elias said. "You're hiding his story too." The princess hesitated, then said, "I can't tell you everything yet. If I do, they will shut this trial down and erase your memory." "Then don't tell me everything," Elias said. "Just tell me one thing." "What?" she asked. "Are you here by choice?" The princess didn't speak for a long time. Then softly, with a voice full of shattered glass, she said, "No." And in that one word, Elias felt the entire truth behind the mask. She wasn't a ruler, she was a prisoner. Suddenly, the lights in the chamber flickered again. A low alarm echoed through the walls. "Someone's here," she said sharply. "The chamber's been breached." Before Elias could move, a panel behind him opened, and two guards rushed in, weapons drawn. But they weren't Zalari soldiers, at least not official ones. Their armor was black, their eyes glowing red beneath the helmets. "Step away from the bond candidate," one of them barked. "He's failed." "No," the princess said, her voice rising with rare force. "He passed more than any before him. Not our concern." The soldiers snapped. Our orders come from above. Elias stood firm, his instincts kicking in. He reached slowly to his side, where a small device sat on his belt, a hidden EMP grenade. One move and the whole chamber would go dark. Giving him 5 seconds, maybe 10, he looked at the princess one last time. Her hands trembled slightly, not from fear but from hope. "Whatever happens next," Elias said, "I'm not walking away." Then the princess said something unexpected, something that made his blood run cold. "They killed your brother," she whispered, "and you're next." Before he could respond, the guards moved in, and the lights shattered into sparks. Everything was dark. The sound of sparks echoed through the chamber. Elias hit the floor and rolled behind a support beam as the 2 black-armored guards fired their plasma weapons. The princess screamed, not in fear but in anger. "You fools! Stop this now," she yelled, but they didn't listen. Elias tossed the EMP grenade. A sharp burst of light exploded across the room, followed by a wave of silence. The guards dropped instantly, their systems disabled. Lights flickered weakly overhead, revealing the princess, half her body now visible, her face still hidden. Beneath the veil of shadows, she rushed toward Elias, her steps unsure but fast. He stood up, breathing hard, blood dripping from a small wound on his shoulder. "Who sent them?" he asked. "I don't know," she replied, "but they were not mine." "They knew about Adam," Elias said, his voice low and sharp, "and they didn't want me to know the truth." The princess looked around quickly, then grabbed his wrist. "We don't have much time," she said. "I need to show you something." She led him out of the main chamber through a hidden door, into a long corridor lit by dim red lights. They passed under strange glowing glyphs, ancient Solari, writing that pulsed like a heartbeat. Elias didn't ask where they were going. He just followed finally. They reached a round room with a glass floor. Beneath it was a swirling mass of light and memory. "This is the Mind Core," the princess explained. "It holds every bonding trial since our empire was founded." She activated a console, and the floor came to life. Scenes floated in the air past suitors, alien ambassadors, even royalty. All of them failed. All of them walked away, broken or frightened. Then she stopped the images on one moment. A human face appeared, blurry but familiar Adam. He was younger than Elias remembered, but the eyes were the same, sharp, determined, and full of fire. Elias stepped forward, staring at his brother's face like a ghost had returned. "He made it to the final stage," the princess said. "He passed every test." "Then what happened?" Elias asked. She hesitated. "He discovered what the bonding trials were really for," she whispered. "And that's when they erased him." Elias turned sharply. "Erased?" "Not just his body," she said. "His data, his records, everything removed from the archives, as if he never existed." "But why?" Elias asked, his voice shaking. "Because he saw what I truly am," she said, "and he tried to free me." Elias looked at her, now not just with curiosity, but with anger and sorrow. "You're not a test," he said. "You're the prison." She didn't deny it. Instead, she reached toward another panel. "If we continue the bond, you'll face the same test he did," she said. "And if you pass, you may lose yourself." "I don't care," Elias said. "I want to know the truth." She looked into his eyes, and for the first time, Elias felt the fear behind her calm voice. Then the chamber filled with white light, and Elias's body froze. His mind was pulled into a simulation, not of combat, but of emotion, a test not of strength, but of soul. He stood now inside a memory hers. He was a child again, standing in a dark nursery. Tall figures in black robes loomed over him, whispering lies. "She must be kept hidden," one said. "She is not one of us." Another said. Then the child princess appeared, locked in a glass cell, eyes full of silent screams. Elias tried to speak to her, but no sound came from his mouth. She was reaching out to him, begging, but he couldn't move. The scene shifted again. Now he stood in a cold hall filled with mirrors. Each mirror showed a version of himself, strong, weak, angry, loving, broken. The voice of the princess echoed around him. "Which one of you is real?" she asked. "Which one do you want me to trust?" Elias stared at the mirrors. He saw the soldier, the diplomat, the brother, the failure. "I'm all of them," he whispered, "and none of them." Suddenly, the mirrors shattered and the princess stood before him, but this time without a veil. He still couldn't see her face. It shifted like a dream, as if reality itself couldn't decide what she looked like. Then her voice came again, softer now, like wind in a dream. "If you bond with me, you'll never see who I truly am, not even in your mind." "I don't need to," Elias replied. "I already feel who you are." The simulation cracked open, and Elias gasped as he returned to the real chamber. The princess stood before him, her hand gently on his arm. "You passed," she said. "No one has ever reached the mirror trial." Elias was shaking, exhausted but focused. He had seen pain, lies, and pieces of the truth, but he had also seen her trapped in silence, waiting to be understood. "Why do they keep you locked in these trials?" Elias asked. "Because they fear that if someone bonds with me for the right reasons," she said, "I'll remember who I really am." Suddenly, alarms sounded again. The council had discovered their escape from protocol. The chamber doors sealed, and red lights blinked across the walls. "Get ready," the princess said, her voice steady again. "They're going to try and end the trial before you reach the final gate." Elias looked toward the closing exit. "Then we better move fast," because now he wasn't just bonding with her. He was fighting for her, and whatever game this was, he refused to lose. The alarms howled like dying machines. Flashing red lights painted the curved walls of the bonding chambers. Elias stood with the princess at the center of the room, both breathing heavily. The air was thick with energy. Something was coming, not another test. Not a trial, something real. "They've locked the inner gates," the princess said, looking at the control panel. "They want to trap us here until they can erase the memory field." Elias clenched his fists. "They want to erase me too," he muttered. She looked at him sharply. "If they do, the entire bond will reset," she said. "You'll forget everything, even me." "Then we're not giving them the chance," Elias replied. He reached into his utility belt and pulled out a small black disc. "MP disruptor," he said. "Low blast. Short range, but it'll unlock local doors." He slammed it onto the console. A pulse exploded outward with a low boom, and the room's lights blinked once, then returned to a steady blue. The chamber doors slid open just enough. "Let's go," Elias said, grabbing her hand. She hesitated for a heartbeat, then followed. They moved fast through the side tunnels, narrow paths not listed on standard maps. "Where are we going?" Elias asked. "To the mirror vault," she said. "That's where the council hides forbidden truths about me, about the past, and maybe even about your brother." The walls around them were smooth and silent, but something felt off too. Quiet. No guards, no motion, just silence. That's when Elias saw it. A shadow moved behind them. "Quick, silent, predatory. Move," he said, pushing the princess forward. But it was too late. A sharp blade flew through the air and struck the wall beside them, vibrating from the force, from the darkness. A figure stepped out, clad in dark, skin-tight armor with no visible face, just a glowing red symbol on the chest. The princess gasped. "An echo shade," she whispered. "They're not soldiers," Elias said. "No," she replied. "They're executioners." The assassin moved like smoke, fast and silent. Elias barely dodged the second strike, the blade slicing through his jacket. He fired a stun shot, but the figure vanished again, then reappeared behind them, reaching for the princess. Elias turned and tackled the assassin. The two crashed into the wall, trading blows. Elias was strong, but the shade was faster, trained in ways he couldn't match. Still, Elias fought like a man with something to protect, not just survive. The shade slammed Elias to the floor and raised the blade. But the princess shouted something in a language Elias didn't understand. The shade froze just for a second. That was enough. Elias drove a hidden spike into its chest, right into the red symbol. The armor cracked with a hiss, and the shade collapsed, twitching. Then silent, Elias stood up, wiping blood from his lip. "What did you say to stop it?" he asked. "I gave the kill code," she said, her voice trembling. "Every echo shade is programmed with a voice lock. Only royal blood can control them." Elias stared at her. "You've used them before," he said. She nodded, slowly. "Before I was locked in the bonding chamber. I was part of their army," she whispered. "I led them." Elias didn't speak for a moment. He realized he wasn't just bonding with a lost soul or a hidden princess. He was bonding with someone who had been used as a weapon. They moved on faster now, until they reached a tall circular door covered in strange metallic vines. "This is the mirror vault," she said. Elias scanned it. No keypads, no panels. "How do we open it?" he asked. "With pain," she replied. She placed her palm on the center, and the metal vines stabbed into her skin. Elias stepped forward, but she stopped him. "It has to be me," she said. "This door only opens to those with the memory code burned into their blood." The door clicked, hissed, then opened slowly. Inside was a vast empty room with a single floating crystal at the center. The princess walked toward it and activated the console below. A projection filled the air. It showed a hidden council. Meeting years ago, there were figures Elias recognized from the political summit. They were younger, but the voices were the same. "He's too curious," one of them said. "The human? Adam Grant?" "Yes," another said. "He's asking questions about the bonding system, about the princess. We can't let him speak to her. He already has." "Then erase him." Elias felt the air leave his lungs. They hadn't just removed Adam, they murdered him. The princess turned toward him, tears welling in her eyes. "I didn't know," she said. "They told me he ran away." Elias was silent. He stared at the projection, burning every face into his memory. "These are the people running your empire," he said. "They feared Adam not because he was a threat, but because he saw you as a person." She reached toward him. "And now you do too." Before Elias could respond, the projection changed. A final message appeared. Adam's last recording, voice rough and tired. "If you're hearing this." Adam said, "Then I failed to get her out. But you, Elias, you were always the stubborn one. Don't save her because she's royal. Save her because she never had a choice." The recording ended, and silence filled the vault. Elias closed his eyes for a moment, then opened them with fire behind his calm expression. "We're finishing what Adam started," he said. "No matter what it costs." The princess nodded. And somewhere deep in the palace, the true rulers of the Zalari Empire realized their game was no longer secret. The mirror vault door sealed behind them with a soft hiss. Elias and the princes stood in silence, their minds spinning with what they had just seen. The faces of the council haunted the air, floating like ghosts. They had murdered his brother, and they had used the princess again and again as a tool. "They erased my brother," Elias whispered, his voice rough. "They buried his voice in this place and thought no one would ever listen." He looked at the princess. "And you? They shaped you like a weapon, then locked you away like a secret." The princess looked down at her hand, still marked from the vault's lock. "I was never supposed to bond with anyone," she said quietly. "Every trial was designed to fail until you came." Elias stepped closer. "Why me?" he asked. "Why allow a human into this mess again, after what happened with Adam?" She took a breath, as if steadying herself for something painful. "Because of a prophecy," she said. "The council believed a human would someday awaken the Forbidden's bloodline." Elias raised an eyebrow. "What bloodline?" She hesitated, then walked to the back of the vault, where a narrow staircase led downward. "You deserve to see everything now," she said. "Even the part of me I was never told about." They descended deep beneath the palace, the walls. Here were older, carved from black stone and lined with forgotten symbols. There were no guards, no lights, only the glow from Elias's wrist scanner. At the bottom, a sealed chamber waited. The princess placed her hand on the panel, but this time it scanned her DNA. The door slid open, revealing a room filled with cryopods and medical archives. At the center was a broken one cracked from the inside, covered in frost. Elias stepped closer and saw something that made his heart nearly stop. Inside the pod was a preserved human hand. Real, aged, scarred, marked with a military tattoo identical to Adam's. He turned to the princess, his voice sharp. "What is this place?" She walked toward a data panel and pulled up a hidden file. "It's called the Genesis Wing," she said. "Long ago, the Zalari tried to create a new line of leadership, one that could understand other species, especially humans. They didn't just study us," Elias said, eyes narrowing. "They experimented." She nodded. "I was the result," she said. "My mother was Zalari, but my father was human." The words hit Elias like a silent explosion. "You're half human," he whispered. "Yes," she replied. "That's why they keep my face hidden. That's why they fear me." Elias stared at her, mind reeling. All the pieces were falling into place now. The strict conditions for bonding, the hidden memories, the emotion she carried, things no pure Zalari had ever shown. "They created you to bridge the species," he said, "then locked you away when they saw what you could become." The princess nodded, but her voice was trembling now. "My mother died shortly after I was born," she said. "The council told me it was illness, but I've seen the reports. She tried to protect me." Elias walked toward the cracked pod, placing his hand over the frost. "And Adam?" he asked. "Was he your—" "No," she interrupted softly. "But he was the first human to recognize me, not as an experiment or an asset, but as a person. He said I reminded him of someone back home." Elias smiled faintly. "He meant me, before they could speak further." A loud rumble shook the chamber. An explosion above sent dust raining from the ceiling. Elias activated his communicator. "Someone's attacking the palace," he said. "It's not random, it's planned." The princess turned toward a hidden hatch. "We can escape through the old transport tunnels," she said. "They lead to the Undercity." As they moved, Elias sent a coded signal to Earth. "Operation Rebirth," he typed. "If this works, we expose the council to every system in the galaxy." They entered the tunnels, dark, wide, and ancient, long abandoned. Transit pods still sat along the tracks. As they climbed inside one, Elias turned to her and asked, "What do you want from this, really?" She looked at him, not as a ruler or a subject, but as something between both. "I want to stop being a symbol," she said. "I want to be real." The pod roared to life, rushing forward through the darkness. Outside, the palace burned. Inside, the princess stared into the future, not the one written by her creators, but the one she would choose. Moments later, they emerged into the Undercity. It was quiet, filled with shadows, but scattered across it were people, not nobles or elites, but ordinary Zalari, and they were waiting. A young voice shouted, "It's her, the Veiled One." The princess stepped forward, uncertain. The crowd parted, not in fear but in respect. They had heard the rumors of the human who walked the trials, of the princess who chose not to hide. Elias leaned close and whispered, "You're not a prisoner anymore." "No," she replied, eyes scanning the crowd. "I'm the start of something new." And as the first light of the next cycle rose above the ruined city, the war wasn't just about power now, it was about truth, and the truth had a face, even if not everyone could see it. The Undercity stirred with silent tension. Word of the princess's reappearance spread like fire through broken streets and forgotten alleys. She had not only escaped the palace, she had returned not as a masked ghost, but as a living choice. Above them, the skies burned. The palace was under siege, not from rebels, but from its own people. Factions within the empire had turned. Whispers of truth became waves of rebellion. But deep beneath the chaos, one chamber still waited. The Council's final plan, its last weapon. The princess and Elias stood before a door sealed with layered symbols ancient and cold. "This is it," she said, her voice low. "The chamber where they erase identities, rewrite thoughts, and silence resistance." Elias stepped forward, scanning the walls. "Memory erasure facility," he read. "And you're its target." She nodded. "They never planned to kill me," she said. "They planned to reset me. To strip me of everything human, everything that made me disobedient." "Not happening," Elias growled. He placed a decoder disc on the door's lock. It buzzed to life, sparks flying, and the heavy gate groaned open. Inside was silence. Room pulsed with cold white light. Wires hung from the ceiling like vines, and machines lined the walls, waiting, patient, merciless. At the center stood a tall, sleek chair surrounded by rotating memory spikes. The princess stepped back, shivering. "This is where they erased my first thoughts," she whispered. "Where they made me forget my father's voice." Elias looked around carefully. "We shut it down," he said, "but not until we pull out the data core evidence." Suddenly, a voice echoed across the chamber. "You shouldn't have come." From behind the far wall, a figure stepped forward. Draped in high-ranking council armor, sharp silver lines marked their shoulders. Elias recognized him, Counselor Vex, one of the voices from the memory vault. "You're late to your own execution," Vex said coldly to the princess. Elias stepped in front of her. "Touch her, and I turn this place into rubble," he said. Vex smirked. "You misunderstand, Captain," he said. "She's already programmed to comply." The machines around them powered up, lights flashing red. Her neural map was built here. Vex continued. "All I have to do is activate the override." He raised a small device and pressed it. The princess screamed and dropped to her knees, hands clutching her skull. "No!" Elias shouted. Rushing to her side, she was shaking, her voice a broken whisper. "They're pulling me back," she said. "They're taking my memories." Elias looked at the machine lines of code flickering across the glass. He had only seconds to make a choice. "Where's the override source?" he demanded. Vex laughed. "It's in the core itself," he said, "buried beneath every line of who she is." Elias stood, turned toward the memory chair, and made his decision. He stepped into the core chamber, ripping off his scanner chip. "What are you doing?" The princess cried out, still shaking. "Swapping her neural signature with mine." Elias said, "If the machine thinks I'm the subject, it'll rewrite me." "Not her." Vex's face twisted. "You'd erase yourself for this creature?" He sneered. Elias locked eyes with him. "She's more human than you ever were," he said. He pressed his chip into the console, and the machine shuddered. Spikes lowered, lights surged, and the erasure sequence began. But something strange happened. Instead of overwriting Elias's memory, the machine paused. The screen flashed. "Error. Dual identity detected." Then a new voice filled the chamber, one Elias hadn't heard before. "It was Adam, override engaged," the voice said. "Elias, if you're seeing this, it means you found her. It means you made the same choice I did." Vex's face went pale. "This isn't possible," he whispered. "You destroyed everything." "No," the princess said, standing slowly, her body still trembling. "You tried to, but you missed something." She walked toward the machine, eyes locked onto the control panel. "I may have been built here, programmed here, and broken here," she said. "But I'm rewriting my story now." She placed her hand on the console, and the machine responded, not with obedience, but with acceptance. Memories streamed into the air, hers. Atoms, others who had been lost. Truth poured from the core, exposed to every terminal across the empire. Vex screamed and rushed forward, drawing a weapon, but Elias was faster. He tackled him to the ground and slammed the weapon aside. One punch, two, and Vex was out cold. The chamber pulsed, the machines shutting down one by one, in their place. Silence returned, but it was a different kind of silence, peaceful. Free, real. Elias dropped to his knees, exhausted, The princess moved beside him, her hands gently lifting his face. "You didn't just save me," she said softly. "You gave me a future." He smiled faintly. "Then make it count, above." The palace trembled. The council's lies crumbled under the weight of exposed truth. Across the stars, screens lit up with messages from the mirror vault. The galaxy watched as the Zalari Empire faced itself, not with war, but with memory, and the one they tried to erase became the voice that could no longer be silenced. The fires of rebellion had faded. In their place, a new light began to rise, quiet, unsure, but steady. The Zalari palace, once shining and cruel, now stood open and exposed, its walls no longer whispered commands, its corridors no longer echoed with fear. Across the stars, the truth had spread. Images from the mirror vault were seen on every major network. The people saw what had been hidden: the lies, the manipulation, the erased identities, and most of all, the girl behind the mask, the princess. No longer just a symbol, now a story, now a voice. Elias stood at the edge of the council chamber, once a place where power controlled everything. Now it was empty, except for a single throne. She didn't sit on it. She stood beside it, facing the public broadcast alone. "I was created to obey," she said, her voice reaching every world, then trained to forget, to hide, to speak without truth. "But today, I choose something else." Elias watched from behind the cameras, his shoulder bandaged, his mind still recovering from the erasure pulse. He remembered everything, but just barely: his name, his brother, the fight, and her. She continued speaking. "I am not fully Zalari," she said. "I am not fully human, but I am the bridge between both." There was a pause. The galaxy held its breath. Then, she said something no one expected. "And I choose to bond." Elias blinked. His heart stopped for half a second. Was she serious? "I choose to bond not because tradition says so," she said. "Not because I was told, not because I was ordered, but because for the first time in my life, I saw someone who looked at me, not with fear, not with desire, but with honesty." Cameras turned toward Elias. He didn't move. The moment wasn't a ceremony. It wasn't a performance. It was a choice. The princess turned to him, her hand raised. "I ask you, Elias Grant," she said, "not as a ruler, but as a person. Will you walk beside me, not behind, not ahead, but beside me?" He stepped forward, no fancy armor, no speech prepared, just him, raw and tired. "I didn't come here for power," he said. "I came here because my brother believed in something. And now I do too." He reached for her hand, and for the first time she removed her veil. There was no gasp, no fear, only silence, gentle, respectful, real. She looked nothing like the rumors, not monstrous, not glowing, not terrifying. Her eyes were a strange mix, one Zalari silver, one human green. Her features were soft, marked by quiet strength, but her expression was what held everyone still. "Because it was free. This is me," she said, "and I'm done hiding." The chamber lights faded, replaced by starlight pouring through the ceiling. The new era began not with fireworks, but with understanding. Across colonies and border systems, debates ended. People realized the bond wasn't about domination, it was about choice. In the following cycles, treaties were rewritten, trade lines reopened, the empire shifted, not fast, not perfectly, but forward, and in the heart of it, Elias and the princess, two beings from different bloodlines, now sharing a future. They walked the same halls that once tried to break them, but now they were building. One evening, as the two watched the stars from a quiet balcony, the princess turned to Elias, her voice softer than ever. "Do you regret it?" He looked at her, smiling slightly. "Regret trusting you?" He said. "No." She leaned against his shoulder. "Even though we'll never have a normal life?" He laughed quietly. "I never liked normal," he said. "And I don't need to see your face to know who you are." She tilted her head. "But you've already seen it." He smiled, eyes still on the stars. "I wasn't talking about that. I see you every time you speak without fear. Every time you stand when the world expects you to kneel. That's what I see, she didn't reply. She just closed her eyes, letting the moment rest, letting peace fill the space once ruled by silence and wires. In the histories that followed, some called it a rebellion, others called it a miracle. But those who were there simply called it the bond beyond faces, because it wasn't built on sight or status. It was built on truth, and truth, once seen, cannot be erased.